Okay, I'm back again. I've been having a lot of questions about my battery storage system and my solar system, solar array, and how it's worked for me in the last year. So I thought I'd put together this little video to try and explain in a simple way without going through all the facts and figures. And you know, plenty of people have done that. It's something that if you want to know the exact facts and figures on how much it's going to cost you and how much you're going to save, unfortunately you'll have to put in the legwork and scratch your head and work out your own consumption for yourself. But I just thought I'd put this together to try and explain the benefits we've had from going more or less all green on our energy. Our last bill just on the solar before the batteries were fitted, we were paying £120 a month electricity over a year ago, and our bills are now down to £34 a month. And I'm running an electric car. I've done 13,000 miles in the last year in the electric car, so I've got no fuel bill if I just run that car. The savings we've made for us personally have been absolutely amazing, but the outlay has been quite considerable. Right, so yeah, our last electric bill was £34, and we also, I forgot to mention, we also exported £10 worth of electricity, so that brought our actual bill down to £24 for the month for doing 800 miles that month in the electric car and for running the house. Our house is a 300-year-old cottage. It's definitely not green to run, and it's like a bungalow style, a house and barn conversion that we've joined together over the years. So it's the most uneconomical electrical property to have and to run, and we've got our bills right down. So with this, I was trying to think about how to explain it in a way that you could understand. So I'm going to flick over in a minute to the other me with some jugs, so you can physically see where the electricity is coming from and where it's going, and it just might make a little bit more sense. If you're like me, if you can see things how they happen, it sort of makes more sense, and it goes in better than if somebody just waffles on like I'm starting to do now. So let's cut to the other me. See you in a minute. Hopefully this is the easiest way I can think of to explain how our battery and solar power system powers the house to make our electricity as cheap as possible. We have the house, we have the battery, we have the grid supply where we only use cheap overnight electricity at 5p a kilowatt. It's going up to 7.5p a kilowatt in about a month, and we have our solar power. So by watching this, I'll be juggling stuff, and hopefully I'll explain how we integrate the solar and the battery into our house supply to keep our bills down as much as possible. Right, on with the show. Our solar powered system and how it works. This is a house, written on it house. That's the grid, and that's the solar. So the house has needs and demands, and what happens when there's no solar? The grid goes into the house. As the solar starts increasing, the solar power, as the sun comes up, the solar goes in and the grid goes in to supply the house. Eventually, if the sun's bright enough in the summer, we're running just on solar all day, Then in the evening we go solar, grid, and it swaps over to grid to provide the power to the house. That's the way we've been running for the last year, and it's been great. We've basically halved our electricity bills. We're selling back to the exporting, but whatever the solar's producing, once the house doesn't need any, so when the house isn't needing any solar and the solar's going in, what's left over gets exported back to the grid. You're liking this? This is the best way I've thought of to describe this. Now, reset everything. We have a battery. Recently, the last month or so, we've added a battery into the system. So, the battery is flat, it's empty. The house at the moment has no needs. Overnight, what you can do is you can fill up from the grid on cheap electricity into the battery, and that will trickle charge into the battery over a 4-hour period. Then when you get up in the morning, your battery supplies the house. If your battery capacity is big enough to last until your next cheap overnight tariff, your battery charges up again overnight, and your battery runs a house all day on the cheap electricity, so you never have to buy cheap electricity. One disadvantage for this is if your battery is charged overnight, and your battery is full overnight on cheap electricity, and then you start putting it into the house during the day, say you're running the dishwasher, so it's about 2000 watts, so that's coming out of there. Now you put the washing machine on as well. The battery can only provide 2000 watts, you need 4000 watts, so the other 2000 watts is going to come from the grid while they're both running at the same time. So you've got to keep your power consumption down to one item running at about 2500 watts, otherwise the inverter won't cope, or you need to double your batteries up, double your inverter up. So that's one consideration you need with that system. We've got our solar and our battery in the system now. So we've got the grid set up on cheap rate to fill the battery to 50% overnight. Then the battery starts supplying the house demand, which is nothing hardly, during the day. Then the solar kicks in, that takes over the supply from the battery. The sun gets higher, the sun gets stronger, and we can get this juggling now. The solar fills up the battery provides the power for the house, and gradually the solar battery fills up, during the day the sun goes down, you continue to run the battery all night. You could have, if you're below 50%, you could have your overnight top up from the grid to get you back up to 50%. If it's already 50%, it's not needed. The sun comes up the next day and starts charging the battery back up, while the battery is still providing the power for the house during the day, and the battery fills up. Any extra solar that's not needed, unfortunately I haven't got 3 hands, goes from the house, is exported back to the grid, or a car or a water heater. So your solar now go back to the grid. One consideration with any of these systems is the size of the inverter. Our inverter is only big enough to run, say, a dishwasher or a washing machine, one item at any one time. If we have the dishwasher and the washing machine on, the inverter can't cope, so it goes from the grid. So what we've got here again, we've got the battery and the solar, both come to the same inverter, so they're providing the house. Then you turn on a dishwasher and the supply goes up. Then you turn on the washing machine and the battery can't provide any more power, so the other half of it for the house comes from the grid. When one's finished, the grid supply stops and it carries on draining from the battery. The solar can be topping this up, but the inverter can only supply enough for one device at one time. So you have to time your devices, having the solar, the dishwasher first, then the washing machine on timers. You can do them, so you're not overloading the system. It's sort of like when you go camping and you go on a campsite and you turn too many electrical appliances on at once and you trip the whole site and everyone's in darkness. So it's sort of that theory. So you've got to plan your day a little bit to just run one large consumption item at a time, and the system works great. Save yourself loads of money. We are. Did that make any sense? I hope it did. I've been thinking long and hard on how to explain the best way I can how we use our solar and battery system to keep our bills as low as possible. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments below. If you like this, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, it helps the channel. Hopefully it's been of some use to you in trying to explain the two ways that you can potentially save money on solar and batteries. That a lot of people reckon now that if you've not got any system in the house at all, it used to be solar was the way ahead. A lot of people are saying now that batteries make more financial sense. Just fill your have a battery capacity enough to store the kilowatt usage you have in the house, and then charge the battery up fully overnight on a cheap, like Economy 7 Octopus Go type tariff. So you're buying all your electricity overnight at 5 or 7.5p a kilowatt, and then you're using that electricity that you stored in the batteries throughout the day, instead of paying 33p a kilowatt, which is the new rate I'll have to pay for my electricity in daytime, peak time use. So the battery storage, this is 2022 now, May 2022, and the prices of battery storage is roughly £1,000 per kilowatt. So for every 1 kilowatt you want to store, it will cost you about £1,000 for the batteries. So we've got a 10.4 kilowatt battery system, and we actually got a deal on it where you buy one get one half price. So the batteries did cost us about just over £6,500, but that's a bit of a bargain at the moment. That's why we went for it. Battery prices are continuing to come down, so it's a question of how long you want to wait for the battery prices to drop enough, and still have availability of batteries, and how much sense it makes for you to go this way. Does that make any sense? I'm waffling again, aren't I? Right, see you next time. Bye.